When I was 18, I took a sociology class for the first time, and it blew my mind. It was the first time in my life that I was exposed to this idea of inequality. And it's kind of part of our social world. It's really part of our society, this concept of inequality. It really bothered me to my core when I was first learning about it because it's really an issue of fairness. It's an issue of justice. It's really coming down to an individual's chances for achieving success in their life, and to imagine as a young person that there were groups of people in the world that didn't have those same chances that I was given, that weren't able to kind of build off of the same lifestyle that I was given, was almost unimaginable for me. It really took me a long time to kind of come to grips with this idea. Because, at the time, the only thing I knew about the world outside of my own life, my own community, was kind of what I saw on television. And those things don't often kind of bring across the actual realities of inequality. It's more entertainment. It's more trying to see other people's lives in new ways. And this was even before reality television, so we didn't even have that to kind of lean on for what it's worth. So this knowledge kind of stuck in the back of my head, and it didn't really affect me immediately, but it was something that I had kind of dwelled on for the past going on 25 years now, trying to think about what this means, this issue of inequality in the world around me. And is this something that is worth fighting for? And is this something that I want to dedicate my life to? Well, as you could imagine, throughout my career, I made very specific choices to focus on this issue of inequality, to focus on ways in which I could, through my knowledge and experience, through my privilege and through my position in the world, combat issues of inequality. And it's something that I made the conscious decision to dedicate my life to. Now, there's kind of a different ways of thinking about inequality, or we could even just say equality. There's a really kind of old-fashioned way of thinking that equality is just about rules, right? So it's just about making sure that the rules that we all live by don't discriminate or kind of exclude certain groups of people. So when I have class and I'm teaching a class for my students, I say, did anybody see a sign on the door that said, people with green shirts, you're not allowed to come into the classroom? No, there was no sign like that. So therefore, we've achieved equality because we took those signs down. We're letting everyone in the room. But there's another way of thinking about equality, and this is a way that's more state-of-the-art. It's more cutting edge when we talk about this issue of equality. And it's not just about removing the signs. It's not just about changing the rules. It's also about providing support and accommodations so everyone has a reasonable chance of achieving success in whatever they're doing, whether it's school, work, play, or anything else that they want to do. And so the analogy that often gets used is one of an apple tree. So if we put an apple tree at the front of a room, at one end of a room, and all the people are at the other end of the room, and we say everybody can come and grab an apple, we're not making any rules about who's allowed and not allowed to get an apple, then what would happen? Well, the people that were closest to the apple tree would run up really quickly, grab as many apples as they could, stuff their pockets and their pants and their bags full of apples, and then they would have all the apples. The people in the back of the room, furthest away from the tree, would probably not get very many, maybe not get any at all. So this is just an analogy, a kind of metaphor for how we can think about equality. So the previous way of thinking, the old-fashioned way of thinking is that, okay, we'll just stop making rules about who is and is not allowed to have an apple. And that got us where we are today. But we have to kind of continue to evolve our thinking about equality based on science and based on our new experiences of the world. And so when we think about this apple tree analogy again, we can think not about putting it in one end of the room and everybody else in the other, but maybe putting it in the center of the room. And if somebody is using a wheelchair, making sure that they have a clear line and access to that apple tree. If someone's using crutches, making sure that they don't experience any barriers getting to that apple tree. And if somebody who has no knowledge of an apple tree is able to understand the value of having an apple. So the new way of thinking about equality is providing support accommodations and making sure that everyone has a reasonable chance of getting that apple, a reasonable chance to grabbing an apple if they want to. And so I want to challenge you, I want to challenge all of us to really rethink the way we're approaching equality and stop thinking about it just as kind of eliminating rules that were kind of excluding one group or another, and really think a little bit more critically about how we can provide support, how we can provide accommodations, and really enable people who want to achieve success in their life to achieve that success, really removing those barriers so that they can achieve success. And I'm not saying this is going to be easy. It's going to be massively difficult because all of the institutions in our lives, whether it's government or education or our work, are kind of geared for inequality in some ways. And so we've gotten to a point where we're kind of eliminated all those rules that were barring people from participating, and now we're at a point where we say, okay, how can we reform these institutions? How can we reform those structural issues that are preventing people from participating in a way that they can participate equally? So if you're one of those people who experience any kind of barrier to accessing your right to education or your right to a job, then don't suffer in silence. It's critically important that we work together to try to understand the ways in which society is kind of creating inequalities, and we work together to try to find solutions so that everyone can participate equally.